Hey ladies and gentlemen, Mr. T here as always, and we are here today with our 9th amendment. You guys can see I prettied up my board a little, erased the old stuff, put the new stuff on there. Now, I know it's been a while since I've done one of these videos, I know. The 8th amendment, I just finished up editing it over there on my computer, which is behind me, and from the time I filmed it to the time I actually finished editing it, which was just now, was like 2 weeks. I know I've been super busy, but I'm back. I'm here to do amendments, and our amendment today, the 9th amendment, is a super short one. Now, I know what you said, but I'm going to shock you guys because I'm actually going to stay way under my time. I was actually thinking about putting the 9th and 10th together. So let's jump in. What is the 9th amendment? The 9th amendment is actually a tricky amendment. A lot of people think it's citizens' rights. A lot of people think it's supposed to, limit the, not limit, but to limit the federal government. People get the 9th Amendment totally confused. The 10th Amendment's fairly easy. It's states' rights, and I'll make and I'll argue that and talk about that when I get to the 10th Amendment, which is the next video. But the 9th Amendment, a lot of people get tricky, and even scholars and judges and stuff get it tricky too. When I was doing my research, they even can't, have a solid landing on it. They're all over the place themselves. So let's get into it. Why do we have a 9th Amendment, first off? Well, when the Founding Fathers, George Washington, John Adams, Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, some people I'm sure you've probably heard of, just look on a dollar bill or a $100 bill and that's some of them. When they were planning, the Constitution, they had a lot of bad stuff happen to them because of Great Britain when we were colonists, things like that. So they wanted an amendment that they felt that could say that not necessarily limit the federal government or try to keep it smaller, but they wanted to say, hey, there are more rights to citizens than just what we put in this Constitution. They wanted to say that yes, we are writing this Constitution, the Constitution of the United States, but this isn't it. If we miss something in this Constitution, the 9th Amendment says that citizens still keep that right. And like I said, a lot of people differ on this, but that's kind of the biggest consensus of what it actually was. Now, getting into it, what rights were the Founding Fathers trying to, to say we still have? We don't know. They weren't specific on them. They literally just said enumeration of rights, which basically means like the reading or the mentioning of these rights. That's not it. And that's all they said. That's literally how they ended it. So we don't know what rights they were talking about. It could have been rights to privacy, like we've interpreted the 9th Amendment to mean. It could be, rights to own guns. It could be rights to religion. It could be things like that. And I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute. Those are already in the Constitution. Well, for all we know, they did this in the 9th just to kind of reaffirm them. I mean, due process is in the 5th and the 14th Amendment, but we mention it twice because it's an important thing. So we feel that maybe that's what the Founding Fathers were getting at here. We mention it once in the First Amendment, but then we mention it again in the 9th Amendment, or the 2nd and the 9th, things like that, just so we have it in there more than once, okay? So as time goes on, we have more things to reference the rights that we as citizens have. So, one right, though, that we did actually say that the 9th Amendment gives us is the right to privacy. In Griswold v. Connecticut of 1965, it was basically, the gist of it was a Planned Parenthood organization, or not organization, but facility in Connecticut was helping people and couples with birth control, and the Connecticut state law said you weren't allowed to help with birth control. You can get fined and thrown in prison for it. Well, the head of that Planned Parenthood thing was still helping married couples and stuff like that, talk to them about birth control and stuff. So they got fined, and they Griswold, the head person, and then one of the nurses there both got fined $100. Griswold fought it, and the Supreme Court said, yes, you as citizens have a right to privacy under the 9th Amendment. Plus, they also said that marriage as an institution predates the federal government, which means that's one of our inalienable rights. I know what you're thinking, we've mentioned that in the Declaration, we mentioned that in the Constitution. The 9th Amendment, the Supreme Court finally said that right to privacy is a 9th Amendment right. That's what they said in Griswold v. Connecticut. Now, kind of jumping back a little, with the fact that the 9th Amendment gives us more rights than are just mentioned in the Constitution. One thing is, though, in Barron v. Baltimore in 1833, the federal government said that the 9th Amendment only applies to the federal government. It does not apply to the states. And this is one of those areas that when I was doing my research really went back and forth a lot. So, some not just historians and scholars, but even actual judges and people in the actual justice system said, they jump back and forth saying that it does apply to the states, it doesn't apply to the states. But as far as the Supreme Court goes, as far as the supreme law of the land goes, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. But as far as the Supreme Court has said, it does not apply to the states. The most recent court case that has to do with the Ninth Amendment applying to the states said it didn't. So as of right now, the Ninth Amendment does not legally apply to the states. That could change. Don't say that that's an indefinite yes or an indefinite no. It could change. The Supreme Court could overturn that eventually, but as of right now, it doesn't. Now the last thing is, the big thing is, it's kind of more of a question than an actual like statement thing, because I'm pretty much done with everything else, is should the government detail what rights the Ninth Amendment has? And that's actually been, as I was doing research and stuff, that actually was another major thing, was like, the Ninth Amendment does say we have more rights than are in the Constitution, and the Ninth Amendment wasn't put in play to limit the federal government. It was to stop the federal government from expanding beyond its powers. So the federal government, if the Constitution says that the federal government can do it, then the federal government, by all means, have at it. But the Ninth Amendment was put there to stop them from growing so big that they could take our rights away. That's what the Ninth Amendment was. But then again, we get back to the whole point of what rights is it talking about. The Founding Fathers never said. So it's up to us to interpret it, and I'm sure as time goes on, especially with the way the world is today, or at least the country is today, the Supreme Court might be put up with more challenges and might start detailing more Ninth Amendment specific rights. So, ladies and gentlemen, I know it's a little vague, but the Ninth Amendment is fairly vague. You can go look it up yourself. The only major court case I found was Griswold v. Connecticut, and then Barron v. Baltimore saying it doesn't apply to the states. But other than that, there's not a whole lot on the Ninth Amendment, because the Ninth Amendment doesn't get very specific, ladies and gentlemen, and that's just how it is. It's not like the other 8 amendments that we've talked about so far that, I had to do multiple videos on some of them. So that's really all for the Ninth Amendment. Told you I'd stay way under my time. I'm not even at 7 minutes yet, and actually I just went over 7 minutes. So Mr. T is gonna sign off. I'm gonna go work on my 10th Amendment video, which is a little more than the 9th. Not just numbers. So I'm gonna go, ladies and gentlemen. I'm gonna go edit everything, get everything online to you guys, and as always, stay tuned for our final Bill of Rights Amendment, which is our next video, the 10th, and then we get into our other amendments, 11 through 27. Stay beautiful, Americans. Peace.